And in a lot of cases, in venture capital in particular, venture capitalists themselves have taken an active part in dehumanization of Palestinians, or attacks on student groups themselves, in the public discourse.
One question is, this is all incredible. It does seem like a massive uphill battle because of how entrenched this ideology is and the systems working with Israel are. So what do you expect in the future? Is this more, I know it's a really broad question, but.
Yeah, so ethical investment is increasingly becoming part of the conversation around investing. And you know, we see students fighting for it now in university encampments. We see unions, you know, asking their pension funds, you know, why are you investing in things that we are against according to our values? And that's exactly the same with universities. Universities have values, and their values are not, you know, committing a genocide, helping a genocide. So really what we're doing is we're providing this resource to universities to help, you know, reconfigure their investments into more ethical investments. Now, the students can demand that or not. You know, we help students with their demands. We can help them get demands worded appropriately to work with our criteria in a similar way as they would with the AFSC. But we also work with venture capital funds, and we're talking to venture capital funds and saying, well, this, you know, this divisiveness in America is leading to a lot of ideological based investing in weapons and things like that. And, you know, this divestment movement needs to send money somewhere. And, you know, you should be on the good side, the side that's making things that make the world a better place, which is what Silicon Valley always talks about. You know, if you commit to investing in these things and you invest appropriately, then you can be the recipient of these funds that get moved away from unethical investments.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just incredibly cynical right now. I think a lot of people are, but
there's plenty of universities in particular, but also pension funds that have already said that they're moving away from investing in genocide, investing in weapons, and investing in some cases investing in Israel. So we're just here to, you know, provide them the lists so that they know which of their investments in the venture capital space are safe and which ones should be moved.
Yeah, and that's actually why I really wanted to do this episode and talk to you about this, because this is something that you're never going to hear about in the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. And in fact, moving on to the mainstream media, it seems like there's this massive push within CNN, even like Reuters, and then, of course, Israeli media within Israel itself to kind of really shine the spotlight on this potential deal between Google and Wiz, about the cloud-based cybersecurity company. So earlier in the episode, I kind of contextualized this a little bit. I'm going to play a 2-minute clip from I-24 News yesterday. I think it was I-24 News. We'll double check on that. Talking about, what this means going forward. And then I would like to hear your thoughts on it.
For more on Israel innovation, Israel is known as the startup nation, and now in an incredible development, Google's parent company Alphabet is in advanced talks to acquire Israeli cybersecurity startup Wiz for $23 billion. We'll hear more about that development from ILTV's Ariella Lahiani, but first let's hear from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
In what could become the largest exit in Israeli history, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Google is close to a deal to buy cybersecurity startup Wiz for $23 billion. Google's parent company Alphabet is reportedly in advanced talks to buy Wiz in what would be its largest acquisition ever. Neither company has spoken publicly about the potential deal, but the Wall Street Journal says it could come together soon. Wiz was founded by CEO Asaf Rappaport. His team has been working together for more than 20 years.
What they don't mention in this is that they all used to work for Unit 8200 that you mentioned earlier.
In a precursor to the deal, Wiz predicted in May that this will be a year of consolidation in the field of cybersecurity.
And now to speak more about this is ILTV's Ariella Lahiani. Ariella, what is the significance of this? I mean, what does it mean for Israel?
This is huge news. First and foremost, it's a great testament to Israeli resilience. At a time of war, or multi-front war, I should say, that the Israel tech space has not only remained stable, but has actually continued to flourish. It's something that I think should be recognized and actually applauded. You know, in the face of adversity, they've been able to put that adversity to the side and continue to contribute to an ecosystem that's benefited by the whole world. It's obviously also a massive statement from Google at a time where the BDS movement is a bit of a trend, to be honest, that Google's not only looking at a deal with an Israeli startup, but their biggest deal ever is extremely empowering for Israel, and that they've signaled such a level of trust in Israeli high tech is something that's very powerful, as I said, and this such a high profile acquisition is something that would not only better Israel's reputation as a leading hub for innovation and cybersecurity, but also hopefully foster international investments and funding into Israeli startups and high tech in the future.
You are muted.
So sorry. Okay, so the resilience of the Israeli high-tech sector. So thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, the reports that you see out of Israel are that the Israeli high-tech sector is not doing so well. Israel is, of course, referred to as the startup nation. They are heavily investing in startups, and those startups are not doing well. People do not invest in a war zone. It's largely considered fiduciary irresponsibility to invest in a war zone. This week, we've been reading about Israel bombing in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza, of course. The economy there is pretty unstable. The soldiers or the employees of these tech companies are reservists, and they are the people who are killing kids in Gaza. So we have this situation where people have been pulling their money aggressively out of startups in Israel. One way to look at this is to say, well, one of these companies is doing fine all the same. Another way of looking at it, and I think probably the better way of looking at it, is that there is probably, I don't have specific evidence of this, but looking at the people who are connected to all these things, there's probably a concerted effort to make this story happen. And even if the Google does not close the deal, and I don't think we're going to see Google close the deal within the next year, because there's huge there's huge like antitrust questions and that sort of thing, which have been going on in the US, and of course that's tied to the US political situation as well, and the election. So we're not going to see this deal close in the next 6 months or the next year. So that they will get to do what they did with Intel. They make an announcement that, like, oh, billions of dollars. Like we heard that Intel was investing $25 billion in Israel, and what happened? Well, they did. And part of that was BDS on it, but part of it was just the fact that the whole deal was kind of like a bit of smoke and mirrors in the first place. And I think we'll find that there's, certainly Google has been aggressively Zionist, and we can talk about TechForPalestine and the people that they fired, their Project Nimbus deal, but ultimately, this deal, it does not look like a really good deal for Google, and one would expect that their shareholders will start to get involved, that antitrust will start to get involved, that it may just all be smoke and mirrors.
Right. I think I do recall a few months ago the Intel deal falling through, and that came days after like insiders knew that Hezbollah had penetrated the Iron Dome. And, just as an investor, I'd be like, okay, well, Israel's no longer secure. So do I want to build a 15 billion annex to a chip factory if I was Intel? So yeah, Israel itself is both physically not secure, and I would say economically not secure. We've had reports coming out that not just the high tech sector, which I think amounts for 20% of the GDP, because Israel's doesn't have as diversified an economy as the United States, for instance. But yeah, like 40,000 to 46,000 small businesses have closed. It seems like the tech sector in Israel, like most of the high-paying jobs are in that, and a lot of the reservists are going to fight. So I don't know.
I think the story that they're trying to tell, if you've been paying attention to their own media, they constantly tell stories of like, oh no, woe is me, tech is terrible. We must get investment into Israel. We must save these tech companies. And I think what they've got now is they've got one thing to latch onto to try to bolster this idea of Israel being a good destination for tech investments. And I think what we're going to find is that, at best, investing in $23 billion companies does not have any relationship to investing in $10 million companies. Those are inherently quite different. In particular, Wiz is my understanding, a fully remote company. I'm not even sure what their footprint within Israel is, though I don't actually have details on that.
Right. And so can you explain the significance real quick between the $23 billion company? And first of all, its valuation like 2x in a matter of weeks, which seems insane, from 12 billion to 23.
Their last round, their Series E round, which means their fifth round, right? But it's probably more like sixth or seventh round, was at 12 billion. So they got an investment of $1 billion. And overall, the company was valued at 12 billion, and now they're saying 23 billion, and that was May 7th, right? So we're literally just over 2 months, and the company has doubled in value in 2 months. Seems a little absurd.
Yeah, and so could you explain for everybody real quick the importance between the important difference between having a lot of $10 million companies and just having one 23 billion?
Yeah. So Wiz is a complete anomaly in terms of startups. And you have these every now and then. You have companies like Slack, for example, which show up, just become incredibly popular or incredibly valuable very quickly. And Wiz is one of them. It has $350 million in revenue, even though it started only about 4 years ago.